that is the democratization of software development was really the no code revolution here, 10, 15 years ago. And now with AI coming into it, it's even more democratized because you can just go on ChatGPT or whatever and kind of put together, anything you can possibly imagine.
Welcome to the Las Vegas IT Podcast. My name is Shatoya, and today I have the pleasure of speaking to Dan, who's with Dapper No Code, and I'm super excited to get to know him a little bit better. Dan, how are you doing today?
I'm very well. Thank you so much for having me on the show. I'm looking forward to it.
Yes, and I'm super excited to get to know you a little bit better. Dan, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. So I am located out here in the Pittsburgh, PA region, a little bit north of Pittsburgh. So I'm an East Coast guy, which is a very up and coming tech hub for those of you. I was kind of not really aware of that till I moved here past couple of years. So it's a very big blooming area for tech, just as a side note. But yeah, I've lived here for a couple of years. I'm from Western Pennsylvania originally. Here living with my wife. We've been married almost 7 years. Our anniversary is coming up here soon. Together for like 12, so it's been a very long time. We don't have any kids yet. We just have 3 dogs, so that keeps us busy. But yeah, so that's pretty much me. I run my own business here with Dapper No Code. We do a lot of outdoor things. We're getting into golf this year, my wife and I, for the first time. I've been a golfer, but she's getting into it now, so that's been fun. We like to do all, walking dogs, outdoor stuff, all kinds of different things. So
Got it. No, that's awesome. And so you say Pittsburgh is becoming a tech state for the last couple of years. Is there a reason why?
Well, so I might not be the authority to talk to on that, but from what I've been able to gather, like Pittsburgh was the city of steel, right? It was the steel city, the Steelers, all that stuff back in the day. And when all of that left, there was a void. There wasn't like a big industry that was really taking over and kind of like, becoming the thing. So, and I've joined a couple of, recent or like a couple of networking things inside of your, programs and such inside of Pittsburgh. And I was really blown away at just how many new technology companies. I believe one of the biggest Pittsburgh success stories is Duolingo. They have their offices still here in Pittsburgh. And that's kind of the transition is a transition from like that steel city manufacturing type of city now into a technology space, which is really, really, it's exciting.
Yeah, no, that's especially if you're in technology. So I'm sure that's
Yeah.
exciting for you as well. Could you just tell us a little bit about Dapper No Code and exactly what that is?
Yeah. So Dapper No Code is the company that I started and run that is basically a no code app and software development company. So we build pretty much boutique or custom software applications, both, SaaS tools, external facing tools, and internal company tools using what's called a no code methodology, which is really, when you say no code, it's basically no front facing code. So there's a lot of drag and drop type of modules, really no hard coding or anything involved at the user input, which is really, really awesome because we are able to deliver a lot just as complex applications most times, but for a faster and cheaper fee usually. So it's really, really amazing. And then it kind of gives people the ability to manage and scale their own applications instead of being beholden to a developer and all that kind of stuff. So we work with a lot of different companies. Started off with, very small, even 1-2 person companies, and have moved up to medium-sized businesses. We still don't work with a lot of large-scale businesses, but, that small to medium-sized business is pretty much the perfect, type of gig for us, and really kind of industry-wide. We've worked with construction companies and real estate and even a couple of, financial advisors, fintech type of things, all kinds of different stuff.
Got it. Now that is so cool. And so when you say no code, are you guys building the applications for your customers, or is it more of like a DIY kind of thing?
We actually have both. Most of what we do, obviously, our bread and butter is building for people, but then we also offer, not everyone is at that level. There's also, companies that, kind of have the means and the resources to be able to do that. And then there's people that are, kind of starting up or have an idea or whatever, that we offer, courses and even small group type of things on how to use these and how to DIY it as well. Because it's like that is the democratization of software development was really the no code revolution here, 10, 15 years ago. And now with AI coming into it, It's even more democratized because you can just go on ChatGPT or whatever and kind of put together, anything you can possibly imagine. So we kind of offer both of those spectrums.
Got it. And so I feel like with applications that it can be a very broad. So is there something particular that you guys do for like, as you said, construction? Is there something particular that you guys do provide?
Yeah, so a lot of times what we'll end up doing is when we go in and we build or we partner with a company to build their specific thing. A lot of times people come to us, they just have a need for something custom. And that's really kind of the ultimate need is, well, we're kind of sick of paying for Salesforce and we kind of need a different CRM tool. Or I'm tired of using something like a QuickBooks, so we'll build a custom invoicing tool or something, one of those types of things. But a lot of times, what we'll do is we'll end up turning around and partnering with them to say, okay, great, we have this tool that we've built for you, this SaaS application. Now let's actually leverage it so you could actually white label this or remove that branding and then go sell that as another revenue stream for yourself of saying, hey, we're our number one case study of why this product works. Now turn around and resell it, you know so that's been a really, really fun way to do that. And there's a lot of copy paste kind of things that can happen in there. But for example, one that really hits me is we worked with a construction repair company to basically, there's work orders, there's that was kind of the problem they had, was like there was all these tools out there, they were either clunky or outdated or just didn't really, they weren't customizable. And we built like basically a custom thing from scratch to say, okay, here's the work order, here's the customer, here's all their different equipments, we can add time entries, we can export that to different tools, and just systematize the whole thing but simplify it as well. So that's something that that I hope that's a good example.
No, it is, and then I'm also, just thinking about our, because we're technically in construction or telecom or whatever you wanna call us.
Mm,
We're using so many different softwares, QuickBooks, Monday, what else?
yeah.
GoCo. So what I'm guessing is that you're able to take these softwares and kind of put them into one instead of us having to have multiple softwares, place our time in. Is that kind of what I'm catching?
Yeah, you can do that as well. So one of the cool things is, there's very easy API connections. So you can just sync those things, back and forth so they can talk to each other and all that kind of stuff. And that really expands your capability with all of it. So yeah, you can, it's almost like taking the best parts of everything and kind of making a little software baby.
No, and that's awesome. And I know so many small business owners as well. And so when you, I guess, who's your clientele that you're, I guess, personally looking to connect with?
Yeah. So actually, recently we've been on a big push with service based businesses. Even like chiropractors, interior designers, even lawyers, small, even general contractors, those types of people. Really in that small, like 2 to 10 employee space has been a really, really interesting niche to get into, both for the proposed like cost savings that this can actually do for people, but then they don't really have the resources to outsource an entire development team and be like, hey, we need to spend 100 grand, 150 grand to build this thing or even more, where we could outsource that and get that, just something stood up that's, even just simple and works and just helps us with our processes or whatever it might be. So that's been a recent one over the past like year or so that we've been really expanding in.
Got it. And I know we know businesses like that as well. So that's great to know. And when it comes to, I guess, you did mention your guys' current focus when it comes to the clientele. Is there a focus when it comes to possibly tools that they're using?
Ooh, good question. No, not really. I don't think so. I mean, there are. I mean, well, I guess I wouldn't really expand on that. I would say no. It just really depends on. I mean, I guess the one constriction would be any kind of you know, SOC 2 compliant, HIPAA related types of things. If you're already using those things, sometimes those are not, they don't really play too nice with different things. And there's just lots of security things to think about. That might be really the only restriction. But even that's starting to change. There's a lot more no code platforms that are coming out with that security baked in. So that's very, very new. That's like
Mhm.
2025 new. So that's kind of really the only limit that we really have on it.
Got it. No, that's so awesome. I mean, and very sourceful, resourceful for the, business owners or, service providers, which is awesome. And then you did mention AI. What are some of the different things that you're seeing that AI is assisting with the development process?
Yeah, one of the big things that we started using very early was the design process. Just like the ability to, at least for us from a building perspective, was that was a whole stage of, if you came to us and you just had this general thing like, I need a new system that does this. Okay. Well, that's great. That's very broad. It's not specific. So what AI really allowed us to do was shortcut that of going out and hiring a designer or hiring a UXI expert and just being able to, okay, well, let's give me a couple paragraphs on what you're trying to build. And we can prompt engineer that into spitting out designs. And then boom, we have this, oh, now I can see what this visually could look like and what it can do. So from our perspective as an agency, like that was really, really helpful and like saved us so much money and so much time. And then obviously like database setup and, kind of thinking through what different features might be useful or, before you actually get real customer feedback. But then, from a user's perspective, from a client's perspective, idea generation and thinking outside the box and kind of coming up with, you know, different angles for what the actual software or tool could be, especially when it's an external facing one. You're trying to sell to people, not just like my team and I are going to use it. You're going to actually sell this thing. That has been really amazingly useful because it can think just so much faster and deeper than we can, and like that. So that's been a huge game changer I've seen.
Understood. And I use AI in similar ways as well. So that's awesome to hear that. And then when someone is, they're like, oh, I want to do this, develop this application. What is the first step or thing that someone should do before they, I guess, reach out to you guys?
I mean, the first step I've seen a lot of people do, especially inside of the no code world, is they try to go about building it themselves, right? They'll say, "This is how I got started. Was I had an idea for one. It was a running in health app, and found the no code route, and would find platforms out there. Right, there was I mean, this was 7 or 8 years ago, so there wasn't
Mhm.
as many as there are today. But I found, I did research on some of them. You could go to something like a Chat GPT or whatever to get ideas on what that might be. But then usually what happens is you say, okay, now I think I know what platform, maybe it's Bubble, maybe it's Flutterflow, maybe it's whatever. You dive into that. And if you're not a huge tech person or you have a business to run or you're doing other things, you might get a little bit down the road and just realize like, wow, there's a massive learning curve to this stuff. Even though I'm not coding, it's like the first time you maybe built a website or you did, and you're like, okay, I see, like I could do this, but is it going to be worth my time learning it and then maybe still not even having something that great? So then that's how a lot of people end up contacting us through those various means of like, hey, I started this thing, but like I don't know what I'm doing now, can you just kind of help me through that? So yeah, but that's usually kind of the process of how all of that goes. But I would say, if you have an idea, if you have something that's, I always tell this when I go on podcasts, like if you have an idea, and especially if it's going to be like an external facing thing or something you want to sell, don't keep it to yourself. Like that's a counterintuitive thing to say, like, oh my God, somebody's going to steal my idea and make millions off of it. But I think the faster you can get feedback, the faster you can put that idea out there and get real feedback from someone who would be an actual user. That's very, very useful. And even multiple people, like, don't spend too much time ruminating on something that might not even be a good idea in the first place or might not have validation, because you might spend a year or two, oh yeah, I've had this idea for a while, and then you finally get to it and then you find out nobody wanted it when you could have just completely avoided that situation. So get feedback. That's my first thing. Like, don't keep it to yourself. Get feedback from real people.
Understood. And then currently, is there any recent development within the tech industry that you're, super excited for?
Yeah, actually, there's a lot of platforms out there that have done kind of what I just talked about, where there's prompt engineering to build the thing, to say, hey, I need this, Airbnb type of application where people can find properties and rentals and do whatever. I'm just using that as an example. But if that's kind of where it ended. It was like you could get the thing designed and built, and there's all these marketing things. Hey, building an app is as easy as 3 steps or like 2 steps. Input your prompt and click enter, right? Which is good. Like that was kind of like the first benchmark in this AI no code fusion of sorts. What's being developed now is like, okay, where do you go from there? Because now, okay, great, I've prompt engineered this thing. Now I have this super complex thing that I have no idea how it works. And I have to still learn how to use the software. I have to still learn, how does this list work? How does this database go? What's this workflow that happens on the back end? How does this stupid thing work? It's like flying a helicopter, right? If you don't know how to fly a helicopter, that is. But the one of the new advances is now they're starting to build in the prompting and the AI baked into that to say, okay, now I've created that. Now let's go further down the rabbit hole and say, okay, I want this landing page to maybe look a little bit different, or this data set is not quite right, or I don't really like this color scheme. Can you change the whole color scheme for me? So that's really, really in that's I mean, honestly, that's I think one of the last benchmarks that's going to be available in this space is to be able to literally just build an application through. I think that's the end goal. I was talking with a friend of mine the other day. Like that's the end goal of us to just be able to talk into our phone or type into our computer and have an entire platform, an entire SaaS built. As far as I know, it's not really possible right now, but it's not far away. It's really not far. So that's incredibly exciting. It's incredibly scary to someone like me, but it's exciting, you know.
Got it. And then just, I guess, my thought process with that, because since you are in out, building applications development, I guess for that, if something like that did happen, do you have an idea of where you'd go next?
Where I would go next.
Yes.
I mean, we're kind of already starting this transition, kind of like I talked about earlier, more of the DIY educational stuff. There's always going to be a need for people to learn how to do this. I mean, and it's even funny when you look at like the existing statistics of people who've actually used AI. You would think it's like everywhere and everyone's used it, and 70% of businesses already have it incorporated. I honestly tend to think that those are a bit inflated. In my experience, I have a feeling. Maybe you have a different experience. I just, from what I've seen in my area anyway, in my circle, is that those numbers tend to be a bit inflated. So I still think there's a market for education. There's a massive market for, even just simple courses or simple group sessions, workshops we're doing more of, just to teach, what there's still going to be, even though you can make something as easy as that, and they're still going to be like, okay, well, how do I get the most out of this? Right. I think that's probably where at least inside of this, there would be a great pivot.
Got it. And then I just think, no, I agree with you. Even, learning how to, when it comes to ChatGPT, learning how to put certain things so you get the answer that you want back.
Right.
So I think even something like that, like a lot of times people are just using it wrong.
Yeah.
So I think that's, another thing as well. And then I guess, if someone's looking to start offering or start in the tech industry, do you have any tips or anything like you would like to share with us on different directions that they should possibly go on doing so?
So when you say the tech industry, you mean like kind of like software development?
Yes.
Yeah. It's a booming industry to be a part of. I think a lot of people think that it's super flooded because you can go on Upwork and you can find 9 million people who do that kind of stuff. But I think that there's still a ton of room for consultancy, right? There's so much room. If you That's when I started this, I was like, okay, how am I going to differentiate? How am I going to stand out? And one of the things that, I started early on was, okay, the technology is the technology, and that's just what it is. I can't really control a lot of that. I mean, to an extent I can, but what's really the power behind it is the intention and the thought process and the business acumen to like make that thing work. and like why is this useful to the client? What result is this helping someone get? I can, I can build anything, but if it's not useful, what is that? What is the point of it? So I think, yeah, for someone wanting to break into it, I mean, think through like if how can you be more than a developer? How can you differentiate what skill set, what you know differentiating factors do you bring to the table that make people want to work with you? Because that's what, like that's why people work with us. Is I get on calls with people and they like me and they're like, oh, I like working with Dan. That's the key, right? So that would be my advice. I think that would be a huge leg up for anyone.
Understood. And then how does someone stand out? A lot of times we talk about competition.
Hmm.
But how, like, how does someone stand out? You know, you said Dan, like people like working with Dan. Like what are some of the things that you do for people to, I guess, like you?
Oh, that's a good question. I don't think I've ever been asked that. I mean, I think, when I go back and look through some of our testimonials at times, I think one of the big things that's always stood out for us has been the focus on customer service. Stuff's going to break. Like that's the reality with technology is you can sell all the cool things. You can be like, "Hey, this thing is going to be the coolest thing ever." And it's inevitably going to break someday. Like it's
Mm,
just going to happen. So I think, you know, being upfront and then with that and being very honest and authentic with people, but then also like being like, hey, this is broken and I don't know why, but we'll fix it and we'll make it work. And then I also think, another thing that's always been really helpful has been like just like thinking through the entire customer experience and the communication and the like almost like a white glove type of thing has been a big differentiator because it's just like, wow, like this is exactly what we were trying to go for. And I don't know how they figured it out, but like we were able to do that. So I don't really know if those are like tangible things that I could, tell someone, but that's always been my focus is to make sure that like customers are taken care of and whatever is required for that is done. And then that there's a clear sequence and a clear timeline of this is what the expectation is and this is what's going on. And people are usually happy with that, you
mhm.
know, it's really that simple. It can be.
No, and I agree. All right, the our society with customer service, with automations, I sometimes feel like we're starting to lose that. So I do feel like it's important that you continue doing that. But how do you continue having your customer service, or is there an outline that you guys have in place with, AI and automations so you can continue providing great customer service?
Yeah, it's a good question. You know, to be very frank with you, we've tested that a little bit, just kind of found it to be not as personable. So we still actually just keep everyone in Slack. We have individual Slack channels for clients and we just keep that communication line open. And it might not be the sexiest AI agent cool thing in the world, but it works. It works. It just does. So I mean, I think that's been a huge success point for us is just not really trying to make everything as automated and AI agent based as possible. Like there's ways you can do that in Slack, but like we just found like this works. Why if it's not broke, don't fix it, you know?
No, I agree. And then just in case someone doesn't know what Slack is, can you just share with us on what that is?
Yes, sorry. So Slack is a very, very powerful, very awesome communication tool for teams. So you can find it out. Like I don't even know, it's slack.com or something like that. But you can basically set up your team and there's individual threads. So you can have like an announcement thread and a team thread and project management or project A, project B, project C, and then you can add multiple people into those threads. So it's a really, really amazing tool.
Yeah, no, sorry. No, and I agree with you. I've used it a few times. I just wanted to ask, just in case people do not know what that is. But no, and I agree with you about the importance of continuing with customer service because sometimes that is what's missing within an organization. Can you, share with us a project that you've worked with on in the past that, you've were very excited about or that you can share with us?
Yeah, I mean, I have several. Always like to talk about my one of my very best clients, one of my very first ones, as a matter of fact, who's just like been like the big shining success story. Her name was Jessica. She started an app called Feel for Your Life. It's a breast cancer awareness and informational app. So she was like kind of the avatar we talk about of like the single entrepreneur that just had an idea and wanted to launch it, and we've just seen massive growth with her app. It's just unbelievable. But she also had a very unique marketing approach. She was a breast cancer survivor. She was pouring her, like, this was her method of reaching out into the world and sharing her story. So that was a very, very interesting one. Even recently, there was one that we built for a lady named Stacy, who just was this incredible networker. She had all of these different networks and circles of people she ran, and she was just like, that was her gift of just networking and connecting things. And we built, basically, she wanted a directory to be able to keep all of that, kind of automate herself a little bit to say, hey, here, like almost like a LinkedIn type of thing, but a little bit different because it had to do more with communities and groups and that kind of thing. So building that has just allowed her to scale so much faster because it took away all of this manual stuff. Now she can just say, hey, here's this thing, here's this link, send it to here, here's the profile, all that kind of stuff. And then there's just a whole bunch of different unique features inside of there that we built. That those, I mean, those were two of just like the single avatar ones. But it's just like those are really cool examples because it was just like an amazing way to just see something like, oh, I'm bogged down by something, oh, let's fix that and let's bring it to life, so those have been really fun.
No, that seems, and they're two different areas, which is pretty cool. One's business or networking, and the other one's to do with health. I guess what's the process look like to have an app, like month wise, or is it months, years? Like, what are you looking at when it comes to developing those applications?
Yeah, I mean, our normal turnaround time is we try to shoot for 90 days. Sometimes it can be shorter, sometimes it can be longer, depending on the complexity. So, but yeah, that's one thing I would tell people. You got to think when you're doing something like that, especially if you're building it as the tool like we did. It's almost like a little business. It's like at least if it's not the entire business, it's part of a business. So it's something you're not only just setting up because you have a need right now, but an ongoing need. So it's worth taking a little bit of time to put some thought and some processes into it and link it to other things and such. But that's usually our, basically it depends on if you just have the idea in the ether and you just have like, oh, it'd be cool to do this. Obviously that takes a little bit of time because you might not have any idea what you want it to look like or what features you have. You just have this cool idea. But then some people that, come and they say, I know what I want. I maybe even have some rough designs or like a relatively specific outcome that I need. That can go a lot faster, obviously, because it's, we've had people just bring, hey, I have Figma designs, just build this for us. Oh, okay. That's a lot easier.
Of
But when you're
course.
trying to ideate and design and kind of build all at the same time, that's what takes a little bit longer. But yeah, we try to do it inside of 90 days.
Yeah, no, that's so cool because a lot of people think that it takes months or years to develop a application that they possibly have an idea for.
Yeah.
And then, I mean, I guess price range. I don't know if that's something you feel comfortable giving to us, but I mean, what does it could look like for price wise?
Yeah, yeah, and again, that varies too. One of the things that, like I mentioned, this 90-day time frame. One thing we've been piloting is a new program that is basically a fixed fee cost that will get your. It's mostly it's a little bit simpler. It's a little bit more MVP-ish. We're not going to do a whole. If you have a feature set of 1,000 different things, it might not be included. But we basically turn your idea into an MVP style app, and go in and design and launch inside of the 90-day window. And that program right now is $7,500.
Got it.
So that's a, I mean, and that's a pretty amazing price point, to be honest with you. We're probably going to like up that, but that's our team. I mean, when you break it down by hours, it's like a steal, but that's why we try to get away from that model, but we've done projects, north of six figures and that kind of stuff too. So, we, the program can, or the price range can be very, very different and very, very wide at times. But, that's what we like to do. We'd like to be flexible with everyone based on what you're trying to build and what you're trying to do, because, everyone has different budget levels.
Hmm. Got it. And I totally get it. Like, price range is going to change depending on what someone needs and desires.
Hmm.
Is there anything else, Dan, that you'd like to share with us?
Um, well, I'll just go back to my go-to on podcasts. I say there is just what I said earlier. There's no such thing as $1 million idea, just $1 million execution. I borrow that from one of my online mentors from a long time ago. I love that idea. It's a very exciting space to be in. There is so many, like, there's so many ideas. There's just so many different ways you can go. But don't sit on things. If you have an idea to make something work or to make your life easier, and you think that software or an app can be that tool, don't sit on that. Like, go for it. Try to figure it out. Even if you think like, oh my gosh, I'm not techie at all. I can't figure this stuff out. I hate using a computer. It can be done. There's people who are specialized in that, like myself or others, right? That will help you through that. So just do it. Just that's my Nike sign off. Just just do it.
Got it. No, that's great. And if someone's looking to reach out to you, how do they do that?
Yeah, you can connect with me on LinkedIn, Dan Hafner, or you can go to our site, dapperNoCode.com. I'll actually probably have a specific link for you to share as well, which is a bunch of free resources and some different things people can get their hands on as well. So I'll share that with you.
Awesome. I will be sure to put that in the link. Dan, today was a pleasure. Thank you so much for joining me. You have a great day.
Yeah, thank you so much. This was awesome. Appreciate it.